Hi everyone, this is Infinity YouTube channel. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Today we are going to deal on Fourier series. So Fourier series. So before we talk about the Fourier series, we have to know what a periodic function is. So we have to know what a periodic function is. Now, what's a periodic function? A periodic function are functions in which the values of each ordinate, there are functions in which the values of each ordinate, when they say ordinate, ordinate could be given as f of t. So when the values of each ordinate, let's say f of t, repeats itself at equal intervals. So when a function repeats itself at regular interval, we call that type of function a periodic function. Let's take for instance, if f of t is equals to t is equals to f of t plus capital T. Let's assume that this is a function, that f of t is equals to f of small t plus capital T. So this function could be a periodic function if the next f of t becomes, if the next f of t, as in if the next interval becomes f of t equals f of t plus 2t. Okay, so these are how a periodic function looks like. So as you can see, it repeated itself but at equal interval. So this type of function is what we call a periodic function. So when you have this kind of function, this t is what we call the period. So the t is what we call the period. Now let's take for instance, we want to write a periodic function of a sine function. Now we have something like sine x. Let's assume that we have sine x is equal to sine x plus 2 pi. So if this is a function, this function can be a periodic function only if the next sine x, that is the next interval, is equals to sine of x plus 4 pi. So if it repeats itself in this form, which it means that the function is a periodic function. So the next we have to discuss on this Fourier series is, what is Fourier series? What is Fourier series? What is Fourier series? So Fourier series is just a series of sines and cosine. Okay, it shows you how you can use sines and cosines and how you can get the multiples of sines and cosine. So this is what we mean by the Fourier series. And the Fourier series is given by f of x equals a naught over 2 plus the summation of from n equals 1 to infinity an cos nx plus bn sine nx. So if you have a function like this, it means that we are dealing with a Fourier series. So these a naught, an, and bn are constants. They are constants of this function, and it has a formula. This formula was given to us by Euler, but by Euler's law. From Euler's law, a naught is equal to 1 over pi, the integral of minus pi to pi, f of x dx. Okay, so this is what the a naught from Euler's law states that a naught is equals to this integral, while b naught an is equal to 1 over pi, the integral of minus pi to pi f of x. But remember that an is attached to the cosine of nx, which means f of x cos nx dx. And the last is our bn. The last is the bn. So since the bn is attached to the sine, it means that the bn is equals to 1 over pi, the integral of minus pi to pi f of x multiplied by the sine function. So sine of nx dx. So this is a representation of the Fourier series. So the next thing you have to know in this Fourier series is what we call an odd or an even function. Odd or an even function. Odd or an even function. So what is an odd function and what is an even function? So a function is said to be odd if the f of minus x is equals to minus f of x. Okay, a situation that you have a function that has a negative input, and after you solve the function, it gives you minus of that f of x. It means that the function is odd. Now, what does it mean for a function to be even? A function is even if the f of x, if the input is a negative number but the output is a positive number, which means that the negative input in the function does not affect the output. So in this situation, we call this type of function an even function. So we are going to use this idea of odd and even function to solve for the Fourier series of a function. Now, one of the example of an odd function is a sine function. A sine function. So a sine function is an example of an odd function, while a cosine function is an example of an even function. So these are what you need to know for now about the odd and even function. Now the next thing you have to know here is what we call the amplitude and the period of the function. The amplitude and the period, how to calculate the amplitude of a periodic function and how to know the period of that function. So let's assume that you have a function in this form: y is equals to a sine nx. If you have a function like y is equals to a sine nx, a is the amplitude. Y the period is equals to 2 pi over n. Okay, the value of the n that will give you that will be given in the sign will be divided 2 pi will be divided by that n. So that's how to calculate the period of a function. Let's take, for instance, that you were asked to calculate the amplitude and the period of y equals 5 sine 2x. Let's say you were asked to calculate the function, the amplitude and the period of this function. It means that the amplitude is equals to 5 and the period is equals to 2 pi over 2, which is equals to pi. So this is how to calculate for period and amplitude of a function. So this an introduction of the Fourier series, and we'll solve an example and see how we can use Fourier series to solve an equation. So I hope this video was useful and helpful. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.